KTN's Masikandie coming to us from the county of Turkana, just giving us the latest on what's happening there as far as relief food efforts by the government is concerned. We did report since yesterday of what is going on in the county of Turkana. A bad food shortage there following the prolonged drought across the country, and especially in the northern part of Kenya, which has led to 30,000 people, more than 30,000 people fleeing into neighboring Uganda. Now let's bring into the conversation the permanent secretary, the principal secretary rather, in the Ministry of Devolution and Planning, John Conchela. Welcome to our studio, sir.
Thank you.
And we also have in studio with us the country director of World Vision, Nick Wasuna, with us. Thank you for joining us. If we start with you, Bwana PS.
Yes.
We have seen what has been happening in the county of Turkana. Just if you can just bring us up to speed as far as efforts by the government to address the situation in that particular part of the country is concerned.
Yeah, thank you very much. I was in Turkana the whole of this from morning up to around 5 o'clock, monitoring the situation out there and distributing food to the needy people out on the ground. The situation is demanding. Drought definitely is hitting them. Is hitting them pretty fairly, and the need to support them with food is necessary. And the government has always been very, very conscious about the Turkana situation. We have never actually kind of left them without attending. From last year, we've been giving them rations to supplement their own effort. But drought, of course, is biting in the country. The entire Sahel region, there are requirements for support. The Turkana situation is needy, but it has not reached levels where we can say they are death. At least I have visited several districts today, and I have.
But PS, what many Kenyans want to know, just very briefly, is it's like the government was not prepared for this yet. We had reports of there will be prolonged drought. Did the government anticipate this situation?
Yeah, we did anticipate the situation. I can say we sent food in September, and in January, when the next consignment was due, we did send the food. I can say out of the money which was at our disposal, Turkana has taken the largest chunk of the money. We have spent more than 104 million to supply food to Turkana. Today alone, we were distributing food worth 26 million shillings. And we are still dispatching a second consignment worth 63 million shillings to kind of forestall or mitigate the situation.
Thank you, Bwana PS. Nick Wasuna, Bwana Country Director. What the government is trying to do to address the drought situation and famine in Turkana and other parts of the country, can this last? Do you think the government is doing enough?
I think we need to understand the phase we're in this emergency, and the government is doing, rightly so, distributing food at this time based on the context. But really, this is just an indication of the vulnerability of people in the arid and semi-arid areas. Turkana, for example, has had decades of underinvestment, and so we're surprised when just a slight change in the climate suddenly creates what we're seeing. I think the drive now, and the government has got an ending drought emergencies strategy, which is part of Vision 2030, which is in the medium-term plan too, to start to address these issues. So we don't see these kind of pictures again. And as agencies like World Vision, we are committed to supporting the government to ensure that we address the root cause. We now need to look at mitigation. We need to put in infrastructure. You cannot expect somewhere where the main road is a riverbed and you're expecting to see resiliency in these communities. That is not acceptable. As we move towards Vision 2030, imagine a kid in Turkana born today. In 16 years, he should be living in a country that is prosperous and a middle-income country. We need to speed up what we're doing. We need to prioritize these areas and fund them. Make sure we invest in the right things so that we can see people that actually can engage in society, engage in markets, start actually creating wealth, not maintaining poverty.
Thank you. Let's now bring in our viewers into this conversation and to our big question tonight. And we are asking you, do you think the government has done enough to help victims of drought in the county of Turkana? Do you think the government has done enough to help victims of drought in Turkana County? Tell us what you think by SMSing your yes or no response to the number 22155. Plus, of course, a brief comment. We shall be sampling those comments as well as giving you a poll result at the end and during this live newscast. You can also tweet us at Ben_Kitili, at Kachungira, and at KTN Kenya. Meanwhile, in the studio, we are with us the Principal Secretary in the Ministry of Devolution and Planning, John Conchella, and the Country Director of World Vision, Nick Wasona, just talking about what is happening in Turkana. If I can just, Bona PS, just looking at some of the responses we are getting via social media, just talking to different Kenyans. 2 years ago, we had the drought in 2011, what described as one of the worst in 60 years. And there was a Kenyans for Kenya campaign. And there were these plans to, as much as we're given immediate relief aid to Turkana people, we also put in place viable long-term solutions to make sure drought does not affect Turkana people as it has done over the decades. What have we done so far?
Yeah, I must say, of course, as indicated by the Director of World Vision, I think the long-term solution is necessary to kind of reverse the situation in Turkana County. And as a government, what is indicated in the flagship, in the blueprint of Vision 2030 and then MTP2 is that we should be able to make Turkana Basin self-sustaining. The Lotip Basin, we've been told, has a lot of water, and we need to bring that underground water to the surface to do irrigation to address the issue of food insecurity in Turkana County. That should be probably the easiest way to afford this kind of scenario, which apparently is no longer something which is unknown. We anticipate, we know definitely in every year we must find a situation in one part of the year that we have to feed the people of Turkana. So for the government, we have put in place, as you have seen in Tana River, we have addressed the issue of irrigation as a solution to food insecurity in the country. That was one of the beginning. And I have a feeling the relevant Ministry of Agriculture and Water will address the situation in Turkana as soon as practically possible.
But as we are seeing from the report given today by your Alliance Secretary, Anne Waiguru, she gave us an outline of the counties or the areas, the regions that are most affected by the drought, and there are around 10 or so counties, the likes of like Kipia, Baringo, Isiolo, Wajir, and Garissa. So is the government concentrating on these areas as well, not just Tana River and Turkana?
Absolutely. If you see, we have addressed virtually the entire assaults, particularly Marsabit, Isiolo, Samburu, and now Turkana. We have always been in touch with them, and we have given the food supplies and continue doing so. I think what we are doing is really short-term intervention, and we have to address the long-term bit of it, and the government definitely is working in that as clearly indicated in the blueprint. Of course, give the government a bit of time. We have just gotten into government 8 months ago, so, and we have already started some projects which are of landmark nature, which will change the dimension of food security and the general economy of this country. So Kenyans should give the Jubilee government time to address some of these key issues because they are well on top of the agenda.
So now, World Vision, what is your organization's response to this latest calamity, so to speak?
As with many organizations now and in a devolved Kenya, we're working very closely with the governor and his team. In fact, I was on the phone with the governor this afternoon to hear what his issues are, because we really need this to be a government-led response. That's the way we're going in terms of empowerment. We are ready to support the government. We have existing food programs with the Well Food Program, for example, and many other agencies do in Turkana. So it's not as if food distribution is not happening. It is happening. Some of it is general food distribution. Other is what we call food for assets, where we're looking at creating productive assets with the community. For example, irrigation schemes. There's a lot of potential for irrigation schemes. World Vision has a very good example in Moralem, where actually they are producing surplus and providing it as relief food. So we have shown that there are examples where when drought comes, and it will come, let us not kid ourselves that it won't come, it'll come, communities can actually anticipate, prepare for, and recover better from actually the drought. And that's the direction we're going in. We're very close to the government, and we believe that we have to all work hand in hand because our objective is the same. So we're working very closely with them, and we'll continue to work with them for the people of Turkana and across the Asals, which is really 80% of this country. And it has huge potential. Let us now realize that potential and let us get Vision 2030 really moving, because I believe together we can do it.
Thank you. We are talking to Nick Wasson, the country director of World Vision, as well as the principal secretary at the Ministry of Devolution and Planning, John Conchella. Let's now bring into the conversation the governor of the county of Turkana, who now joins us live on the phone from Turkana, that is Josephat Nanok. Governor, if you can just hear us, we are talking to the principal secretary and the country director of World Vision, Nick Wasuna, and we are talking about Turkana especially. If you can just tell us what is the latest as far as the distribution of food aid there is concerned. What happened today?
Yes, I followed the conversation, and I want to correct certain positions that the PS has presented. Indeed, I want to agree that the situation is dire, and we've been pointing this one ever since September, when this situation began deteriorating. And series of meetings were held with the national government. I remember a couple of meetings we held under the chair of the Cabinet Secretary Devolution, and other meetings that were also held with the Deputy President himself. But and we continue to organize partners on the ground here, and partners have actually helped us reach out to about 140,000 beneficiaries, and together with the county government, we've at least done something small, but not sufficient enough to deal with the situation, because we are dealing with numbers that are exceeding 400,000. And so far, the Ministry of Devolution has not even a single bag. Since September, when we announced, have they delivered anything? It is only today when they came in and overlooking the work that we, county government plus the partners who are doing, went direct and wanted to do parallel distribution. So this kind of distributions cannot be able to be effective if we don't, as a government, both levels, together with partners, do this in a much better way and be able to reach out to the needy people in different areas.
Mr. Governor, let's just put the question to the Principal Secretary. He can hear you all right, Mr. P.S., the Governor of Turkana, Josephat Nanok, faulting the national government over your commitment to this particular problem.
Yeah, I think I would go in the direction of sorting out the problem facing the people of Turkana, not to throw blame here and there. Because if I was to blame, it will be wrong for me to say, it will be right for me to say, out of the budget of 2 billion, which was put aside this year, 1.3 billion was devolved to counties. And in that sense, 78 million was devolved to each and every county. That money was enough to silence the cry which was there in Turkana. Because we have many other stakeholders who are supporting us in Turkana, giving relief supplies. We have 153 people who are suffering of hunger, who are left kind of unattended by the various stakeholders who are indicated earlier. Only 153 need relief supplies. If just the 78 million was utilized by the county government, I'm sure at the time we are supplying this food, there would have been no case in Turkana. But I think I would advise the governor that we need to just get together and move forward and address the issues affecting Turkana County, because they are doable, they are reversible, and we move forward as a country.
We shall talk about that more in detail later. Mr. Wasuna, you've talked about working with the county governments. What about working with the national government? What do you say about that?
I think it's very important, but we have to understand the geographical location where we work. So, of course, with the national government, we're coordinating, we're ensuring there's standardization. But in terms of the actual implementation, it happens with the county government. We feel as an NGO going forward, our role will soon be to move out of service delivery directly, but help build capacity, help to secure financing where we can, and help to ensure that we empower the community themselves to understand what their rights are. The Constitution in Article 43 talks about the freedom from hunger and the right to quality, a good quality food. Of course, we're not going to achieve that overnight, but this is the direction we're actually moving in. So people know what their rights are, they know where to go and ask if they're not receiving their rights, and we feel that's the way we're going to go. So of course, we coordinate well with national government, but we also have to be in line with devolution and work closely with the devolved government also, especially for the implementation of these programs.
Thank you. We're talking about the dire situation in the northern part of Kenya, especially the county of Turkana, and in around 10 other counties across the republic where famine is looming following the prolonged drought in those particular areas. You can join the conversation on Twitter. Our Twitter hash for that is Save Turkana. Let's now take you over to the coast region where KTN's Ferdinand Omondi is standing by. Fadi.
Good evening. It's a very sad state of affairs in Turkana, but I do not come with good news. We have a situation report from Kilifi County, which is one of the places which was mentioned as one that has been facing drought, and indeed a rapid food assessment conducted by the Kenya Red Cross has shown that 360,000 people in Kilifi are facing starvation. That's 360,000 people. And indeed, the Kilifi County Drought Coordinator Aiden Mohammed said the situation may worsen, and already we are looking at about 30% of that population. In their emergency reserves, the Kenya Red Cross says that it can only cater for about 5,000. That means that well over 350,000 people could die of hunger if the situation is not made any better for them. Now, the worst hit part of Kilifi County is Ganze, where about 67,000 people rather are facing starvation. A lot of this situation across Kilifi County and indeed parts of Tana River and Kwale County have been caused by lack of sufficient rainfall in the past planting season. So these people, most of whom just do farming for subsistence, went to their gardens, planted their crops, but since there was not enough rain, all that was dried out by the hot conditions of the sun here in the coast region. And this situation will not be any better, at least until August, and that we are speculating or hoping that the rains will come in the months of March and April so that they may be able to plant. And until then, they have at least 6-7 months until August before they can harvest. So until then, we are talking about food aid needed here and water, because another report is also showing that the water ponds are drying up. And that means that there's also increased pressure between the humans and the livestock, because both of them now need that. And that's the latest from this part. Back to studio.
Thank you, Fadi. KTN's Ferdinand Omondi. They are coming to us live from the county of Mombasa. Of course, what we saw today from the report given by the Secretary of Devolution, Anne Waiguru, Kilifi and Tana River, so one of the counties that have been affected by this drought due to the prolonged lack of rainfall. And in the studio, we are with John Conchella, the Principal Secretary, the Ministry of Devolution and Planning, and the Country Director, Nick Wasuna, a Country Director of World Vision. Let's just wrap up this conversation. Let's start with you, Bwana Wasuna. What shall we do to stop these stopgap measures whenever there is drought in the country? What needs to be done, especially in those frontier areas of the country?
I think it's important for us to recognize we are in the dry season. So the early warning information that we're picking up needs to inform decision making. Decision making has to be supported by investment. But we need to follow the government's Ending Drought Emergency Strategy paper, follow the medium-term plan too, because the programs they have in there, from irrigation, from using drought-tolerant crops, and also understanding in these ASAL areas, particularly in Turkana and Wajir, they are very good for livestock development. Let us start to create the right markets. Let us start to bring industrialization into these areas so we can add value to the products that are already there and create wealth in these areas, instead of always looking at them as basket cases that just forever need money and food aid, because food aid is not the answer. Many of these areas have been receiving food aid for 40 years. 40 years. We need to now put a stop to that and say, let us work with the communities to build up their resiliency so that they can themselves recover from these climatic shocks, because they will continue to come. So it's about investment. It's about all of us following the government plan on ending drought emergencies and supporting the agencies that are implementing, from the donors financing it, the government financing it, so we move in the same direction to build the capacity of communities, because they deserve it.
PS, lastly,
Yeah.
Turkana.
Yes.
Turkana borders Trans Nzoia. I mean, that is one of the Kenya's food baskets. Kenyans have been asking, when shall we stop talking about Turkana and farming and relief food?
I think that one is rested on what I had earlier indicated to you, as indicated in our MTP2, long term. We must totally address the issue of Turkana food insecurity by growing the food in Turkana itself. You saw the example which was done in Eastern Turkana. It's now having enough to a point that it can be able to give out. If we can replicate that model across the entire district, now that there is water, I think we should be able to arrive at a situation where Turkana will be one of the exporters of food to support other counties. And I think that is the way to go. What we are doing right now is short term, and the government is on course to address the long-term aspect of drought in Kenya.
Thank you, gentlemen, for finding time for us
Thank you.
tonight.
Thank you.
I've been talking to John Conchella, Principal Secretary in the Ministry of Devolution and Planning, and Nick Wasuna, the Country Director of World Vision, just shedding more light on what's happening across the country.